Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Summer Tomato Live. Summer Tomato Live is your interactive online classroom where I tell you all you need to know about the food and health topics that you vote are the most important. I'm your host, Daria Pino, creator of the website Summer Tomato, where you can find even more healthy eating tips for food lovers. Summer Tomato is also where you can find any show notes and links mentioned in this episode once it's released. Today we'll be talking about habit forming and habit breaking, which you guys voted as what you wanted me to cover this week. I'm going to try and keep my presentation on a little bit of a shorter side because I expect that you guys will have a lot of questions on this topic when I'm done. So don't be shy. If you're watching live, feel free to ask about anything you're curious about on this topic. Just use that little red Ask a Question button in the corner and I'll get to your questions at the end of the show. And by the way, the question queue, you can only ask one question at a time. So if you have more than one question, please make sure that I take your first question first before putting another one in. And of course, if you want to have a live back and forth chat with me, call in with your video questions after the presentation, and I would love to meet you and chat with you. I think we should have some good discussions after this show. And if you aren't watching live but want to participate in future episodes, you can sign up at tinyletter.com/summertomato. Which is the URL at the bottom of the screen. The next live show is scheduled for Tuesday, March 29th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, and the topic will be healthy vegetarian and vegan diets. And I think this is actually going to be good for everybody, not just vegetarians and vegans. I'm going to give a lot of nutrition information and good stuff in there. So I hope you guys can make it for that. That's Tuesday, March 29th. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is that, as many of you know, the way I feel about habits is that they're the foundation of your health style. I don't believe in willpower. I don't think it works for a long time, and I'll go into why in a second. And because willpower doesn't work for a very long period of time, you really need to rely on your daily habits to form your health. Healthy people are not people that do specific things. They're people that do a pattern of certain things. They have a repertoire that they stick with that works for them for being healthy. So I think this is the single most important topic that we could possibly cover in terms of getting healthy. And before we talk about how to form new habits and how to break old habits, I want to talk about something called mindset. And so let me just tell you for a minute what that means. So basically, there's been some research that suggests that people can be divided into two camps. People that fit into the fixed mindset camp and people who fit into the growth mindset camp. And if you read about this topic, so there's a book called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck, and it's a wonderful book. And if you read through her descriptions of what it means to be a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, you might find that part of you fits into one category and part of you are another. So nobody's necessarily going to be 100%. And you can actually move people into the fixed or the growth mindset by how you treat them and what situations you put them in. But what she shows in her research is that the growth mindset is incredibly powerful to getting people to change and succeed. And So basically, what people of the fixed mindset, they have the tendency to be defined by the way things are. So they have a tendency to believe that you're either smart or you're not, or you're either skinny or you're not, or you're either fat or you're not, or you don't have or you have willpower or you don't, or you just can't change because it's just how you are. And the opposite is the growth mindset, where nothing is set in stone, but rather you're smart because you believe you're smart because you can work harder and try and learn, and that makes you succeed. And this is the sort of mental interaction that goes on in your head that gets you to actually solve your problems and actually create success for yourself. So if this is something that's interesting to you, a topic that if it's resonating with you, if you're somebody who have always been scared of pleasing your parents or have always felt that it's been hard for you to navigate the world in a certain sense, like you have you get the feeling that it's difficult for you to approach new challenges, I think that you would probably get a lot from this book. And it's more than just it's more than just diets and stuff. Like it could actually impact your entire life and your career, your personal relationships, and your interactions with your kids. It's actually a really, really wonderful thing to think about, especially if you're somebody who does tend to define yourself and let criticisms really get to you. Because people of a fixed mindset take criticism as a judgment, whereas people of a growth mindset takes criticism as a way to learn. And that's the key difference, because when failures and criticism are something that you're learning from, it actually becomes an asset and not a negative. So it's a really cool psychology. I recommend the book, once again, is Mindset: The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. So I really think that the growth mindset is, when I read this book, I realized that the growth mindset defines a lot of who I am. And that's really what I created Health Style based on, this idea that you can change, that you sort of pick your battles and you find your own way to solve these problems, and that there's no one way to do it. Everybody's different. And so I really think that even if no other part of your life you have the growth mindset, I think in health it's really, really important that you adopt it. And so, and what this means basically is that you believe that you can be healthy. You believe that if healthy people, they do certain things. They're not gifted. They have a habit, and we know what those habits are. We have plenty of science explaining what that is. So you just need to start doing those things one at a time. And before you know it, you have all these habits of healthy people, and you look in the mirror and you are one. So I think it's great. And so I hope that you can all approach this from a growth mindset. So once you have a growth mindset, how do we go about forming and breaking habits? So once again, we get into psychology, and this is really cool for me because I come from a neuroscience and psychology background. I actually did my undergrad in a psychology lab, cognitive neuroscience lab. And so the way we like to think about this, especially for habits and action, is that your brain, you can think of it in two different ways. You have your executive control, and then you have your sort of emotional control. And in the book Switch by Chip Heath, it's Switch. The book is called Switch: How to Make Change When Change is Hard. He just describes these as the rider and the elephant. So basically, the rider is the person driving the elephant, and he's the logical one. He sets the path. He's got control. But it's really hard. If the elephant wants to do what the elephant wants to do, the elephant that he's trying to ride, the elephant will win, because that's your emotions, and it's much stronger force. And the trick to getting change to happen in a person is to make both the rider and the elephant going in the same direction. So basically what the rider is it's logical, it can plan, it has direction, it understands things, but the problem with it is it tends to spin its wheels, it has trouble making decisions. And this is basically what you can think of as self-control or willpower. And what's really important to recognize about this executive control of your brain is that it's an inexhaustible resource. You only have so much willpower. It can only last for so long. So that's why it's really essential that you have the elephant on your team, because you're not going to win him forever. So the elephant, your emotional brain, tends to be more lazy, tends to be more scared, skittish, tends to be hedonistic. But it also is motivated by good things like love and loyalty, and it has a lot of energy and a lot of motivation. And the elephant usually wins. So if you want, like I said, if you really want to make change, you need to get both of them going in the right direction. So a few important points about changing habits. Like I said, the first thing you need to remember forever is that self-control is an inexhaustible resource, and you cannot rely on willpower. And the reason is it's not laziness, it's exhaustion. You just can't do it. The second thing is that you need to have crystal clear direction. So if you have a goal, you need to know exactly where you're going and how to get there. And also you need to shape the path that you're taking, meaning that you can tweak the environment around you to make change easier and more likely to occur. So the way we appeal to both parts of these brains, and again, this is all, I'm sort of outlining what is discussed in this book, Switch, How to Make Change When Change is Hard. It's a great book if you're interested in this stuff. Like I said, most of these habit-forming books aren't just about diet and health, and they can help you in a lot of parts of your life if you're interested in. But what they talk about in terms of how to get the logical part of your brain, going in the right direction. So the first thing you need to do is look for the bright spots. And what that means is look for places in your life where you're already succeeding. So if you're trying to develop healthy habits or try to eat health, so developing healthy habits is too vague, right? That's not crystal clear direction. What is closer is eating more healthy foods, for example. And so you can look at your diet and look at and ask yourself, where do I eat the most healthy foods? Which ones do I like already? Where am I succeeding already, and how can I build on that idea? So that's a really great place to start. And if you don't really know, a food journal or something like that might be really helpful for you, because it can give you an idea of your strengths and also your weaknesses, which we'll get to in a second, but that is important to know as well. The next thing for directing the logical part of your brain that you should consider is focusing on solutions and not blaming problems. So, for example, this is actually kind of difficult to do, to think of solutions, right? So you know what your problem is, and you can, sometimes you can think of things that are causing your problem, but that's not really it's not always gonna help you to know the root of your problem. The real question is, how can you solve it? So the way you think about something like this, like one technique that they recommend is using something called the miracle question. So let's say you go to bed tonight, and when you wake up tomorrow morning, you have whatever your dream is. And if it's a health dream, like you've lost your weight, you wake up and you're in that ideal situation. What does it look like? What do you do in the morning? So if you're healthy, maybe you get up and go for a run, or maybe you feel great, so you kiss your wife on the cheek and run downstairs and make a healthy breakfast for you two. What are those? Try to envision the steps that would be different if you had achieved your goals, and try to start mimicking those in your life. So maybe a healthy person would pack their lunch in the morning. Maybe they'd go for a workout. Maybe they'd open the fridge and it would be filled with healthy food, because right now maybe that's tough for you because you haven't worked in the shopping yet. Maybe you, in your perfect, ideal, healthy world, you're an amazing cook. So maybe taking a cooking class would help you. Stuff like that. The next idea is that it's essential to remember the value of small changes. So health is a big, ugly, scary problem. And a lot of people look in the mirror and it's just overwhelming. And so, it's easier to just buy a bigger pair of pants, or, be very fatalistic about your next doctor visit and assume that there's nothing you can do. But the reality is that the way to tackle these big, scary problems is small little things that can actually make up a big difference. And over time, if you keep compounding these things, they add up tremendously. So one of the best things to do if you're going to start with these small problems is, like I said earlier, is look at the places where you're succeeding already and try to compound those. For example, if you're really struggling with diet and you're having trouble giving up foods you love, how about instead just try to eat more good foods, eat more healthy foods. Just make sure, for example, you get something green in your lunch and dinner every day. That's not that hard. You can do it. Even if you go out for something really bad, you can order a salad to make sure you get that one thing green. And things like that really add up. And they add up also psychologically, so that you end up building yourself up so that you start to actually feel like that healthy person you want to be. Another thing you can do is find like easy targets. So for some people, soda is a huge problem, and we just had a great guest post on the blog from Geekstream Girl, and talking about how you can just switch out soda for tea, and it's hard at first, maybe an unsweetened tea or whatever works for you, sparkling water, and but something like that can have a really, really big impact on your overall goal and get you that much closer to what you want, where you want to be. So the next step for directing the logical part of your brain is scripting the critical moves. So For example, let me think of a good way to explain this. So let's say you want to start a workout regimen. A lot of people have New Year's resolutions where, I'm going to start working out more. And somebody just asked, what tea do I recommend to lose weight? All of them. Sorry. Ask your questions in the question thing, by the way, not in the chat room, because it's hard for me to monitor the chat room. But one thing, let's say you have the goal of going to the gym, but the hard thing is it's so easy to put it off. But if you instead have a script in your mind about when you're going to do it, for example, I'm going to go to the gym after I drop the kids off at soccer, or I'm going to stop by the grocery store, on my way home from work, something like that, so that you have an idea of when, where, and a plan. Yeah, first thing in the morning, exactly. Or for example, here's a little more complex example I thought of. I know I have broccoli and cooked beans in the fridge, but I need a main dish. And I know I won't cook dinner if I don't have a main dish. So I'll ask the mister to grab some fish from the grocery store on the way home. Exactly, fish. And voila, instead of going out and getting a burrito, you have now created a healthy dinner for you and your family at home. So another really, really useful trick for setting new habits and achieving your goals is to set goals that are very black and white. And it sounds really simple, but it's the reason why it's effective is because it's really easy to give yourself leeway if you, like I said, self-control is an inexhaustible resource. So if you have trouble, how often can you go out and have one glass of wine? It's really hard, right? And I got an email question from Aisha, one of our subscribers, and she asked about snacking. She said she has a lot of trouble controlling eating nuts. She says it's a domino food for her, and she has really good self-control at everything else she eats, but when it comes to these nuts, she'll just keep eating and keep eating. She's like, I think I might be addicted to nuts. My advice, black and white goal, dump the nuts. Find a different snack. It's a great snack for some people. It works for me, but it sounds like it's a problem for you. So for your health style, nuts are probably not going to work. So find another snack. May I recommend hard-boiled eggs or a little cottage cheese or something where you can have a discrete amount. I would recommend something with a lot of protein because it's hard to overeat protein. You get full and you don't want to eat anymore. Tuna is another great one. Thank you. So yeah, so that's a great example of a way a black and white goal can be effective for real problem areas. For example, another example, no added sugar or flour for a month. That would probably make most people lose 10 pounds or more, 20 pounds even. Just being really, once you get your health style in order, you can experiment with adding these things back. But especially to get going, sometimes it helps to just have a really black and white goal. Another one, eat healthy breakfast every day. I like to think of breakfast as a gateway habit. So I really encourage people to eat breakfast because I feel like if any of you saw the breakfast chat I did with Monica Reinagel, the nutrition diva, a couple weeks ago, we had a debate over whether or not breakfast actually helped you lose weight or whatever. But I say it doesn't matter because the reason breakfast is awesome is because you guaranteed eat a satisfying, healthy meal every single day. That's one down, two to go, and you're already 30% there. It's a win. It's a win. I love breakfast. So eating a healthy breakfast is a great black and white goal. Don't skip it. Don't skip it. And another good black and white goal is no dessert on weekdays. Sometimes people have problems if they allow themselves I'll only have dessert once a week. But unless you say what days those can be, it's easy to make it a slippery slope where you have dessert maybe on Tuesday and then it's someone's birthday at the office on Thursday you didn't know about and you feel bad not having some cake, and then it's Saturday and you're at this amazing thing. It's so easy to do that. So if you just give yourself black and white goals, it's much easier to stick to your guns. Okay, the next step, motivating the elephant. So, one sec, beer. So those are the sort of logical directions your brain needs to have, right? But like I said, the emotional part of what you do has the most strength. And so it's really important to get your emotional self on board with what your brain wants to do. So for motivating the elephant, one of the most effective things you can do is find a feeling. Give yourself a reason to eat healthy food that's more than I don't want to die when I'm 60 of diabetes or whatever. That's too vague for most people. Sometimes if you go to the doctor and they're like, you're going to die tomorrow, that'll be enough for people. But for most people, it's not enough. So I really recommend finding a reason to love food. You all know that I love going to the farmer's market. I'm passionate about that. That could be yours. It's a lovely one, but it doesn't have to be. Another thing you can do, I recommend, I also have a passion for unprocessed foods. And part of the reason is because I read Michael Pollan's book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, which is a phenomenal book that really makes you think twice about everything you eat. Everything you eat gets a rethink after reading Michael Pollan. Or if you're not a good reader, just watch the movie Food Inc. I know a 7-year-old who stopped eating at McDonald's. That used to be her favorite food because of Food Inc. How awesome is that? So get behind something, love something, have a passion about why you do things, and don't just have this vague goal that seems impossible in the future. Loving gardening is another good one. If you really love to garden, go for it. Start a garden. Grow your own vegetables. How exciting is that? Or even if your motivation is just to be healthy for your grandkids, some people that's enough. If you can't do it for yourself, sometimes you can do it for your kids or your grandkids, and you want to be around to see them grow up, and they're going to do amazing things. So it's really important to find something outside of yourself that's bigger than you to get you motivated. Another way to help motivate the emotional elephant is to make your habits as automatic and as easy as possible. And the way you can do that is by tweaking things in your environment. So what I mean by that is, like I mentioned earlier, a huge barrier for not cooking is not having food in the house, not having good food in the house. I've been having this problem more lately because I used to live around the corner from a very good produce market. So even if I didn't get everything I needed at the farmer's market, I could come home and I knew I could get something great. Now I live a little farther from a grocery store, and if I don't have stuff in the house, it's so easy to go out. It's really annoying. I'm moving soon, and I'm going to be down the street from the Whole Foods, and I'm really excited about that. So, one way to solve that is to be better about shopping on weekends. So that makes your habit automatic. Another thing is to make sure that you schedule in shopping and farmers market trips. Make sure that your gym is near your house and not far away. Have an arsenal of easy recipes that you love, things that you can cook anytime. I would recommend having things that you can use even frozen, or I like to cook this dish with, I should post this recipe, with edamame and peas that I cook, and those are both frozen items. And then I like to throw some herbs in there. I usually have herbs in the house, and then garlic and some nuts. It's great. And, I can always cook kale. I gave you the recipe for that last time. And there's a handful of other things that I just adore, and and I know I can cook them in under 10 minutes. And they're delicious, and they're cheaper than going out, and they're fast. And so having food options like that make it a lot easier to eat healthy, right? Because you like them, they're easy, and you're healthy. You have to have stuff like that. Your healthy habits have to be the easiest possible things you can do. So look at your life, look for the bright spots, try to find places you're already succeeding, and try to make those as easy as possible for you. Another way to motivate your emotional elephant is to, what they call in the book, they call it shrink the change. And what that means is realize that you're 20% there already. For example, with the breakfast. If you eat a healthy breakfast every morning, you shrink the change because already 30% of your eating for today was healthy, right? Awesome. You're 30% healthy. Now you just have to work on the next 2 meals. So rather than focusing on how far you still have to go, emphasize the small wins and the progress that you make. And so what this will do is it will sort of enable you to make steps toward your goal, and you should celebrate all of those small victories. So don't only be proud of yourself when you've dropped 20 pounds and you fit in those jeans you've been dying for. Appreciate the 2-3 pound weight loss. Appreciate the salad you ate today. Don't celebrate by, eating a Twinkie or anything, but feel proud of yourself for all those little steps, because all of them add up. And what's really important is that you think about the wins that you want and make them small and very meaningful, and ones that are easily attainable, and try to be as specific as possible. Like I said, with the breakfast, and cooking dinner like 4 times a week or something like that is a great one. And just have faith in the fact that the small victories really do result in big change. It really, really, really works. And one other thing, and this sort of goes along with finding the feeling that I mentioned earlier, but having an identity-based motivation. So ask yourself what kind of person you are and what you want to be and what a person like you would do in this situation. And sometimes that can be enough. Just take a step back a little bit and be like, well, I want to be I'm a healthy person now. What would a healthy person go get for lunch? If you already know you can't make lunch, but you have a choice where to go eat. If it's a Thursday afternoon, you don't necessarily need to go get your favorite burger just because it's your favorite burger. You can go get the salad or whatever. Awesome. And another thing, and the final thing that I recommend on this is finding support. It's really wonderful if you can recruit your partner or recruit some friends to do this, to go on your journey with you, or some coworkers. They help keep you accountable. They make it more fun. Another thing I've learned from my friend E, Geeks Dream Girl, is that she started something at work which was genius, called Salad Club. And I've always encouraged her. I eat salads at lunch because I can bring in my food from the farmer's market, leave it in the fridge, and then chop up and make my own salads at work. But she was like, why not crowdsource this? And so she got a bunch of people in her office together where they each bring different items. And that way everybody in the office has a great salad that's super interesting because everybody brought different things. And that's a fantastic idea. If you have coworkers that can do this sort of stuff with you, go for it. Recruit them. Everybody deep down wants to be healthy, and really good quality produce actually tastes amazing. It's just healthy food at restaurants is what's not so good. So that's a great way to go. So finally, how can you shape the path, tweak your environment so that it's the easiest way for you to meet your goals? And one of the biggest things you can do is reduce distractions and remove barriers. For example, is your kitchen a mess? Is your fridge filled with grossness? Is your pantry a chaotic scene? Spend a weekend and fix those things. Make it a pleasure to cook in your kitchen. Buy new pans. It's a $100 investment, something like that. It can completely change your kitchen cooking experience. Stuff like that can be very, very valuable. Another thing that is very valuable is something called action triggers. So action triggers are where you script these things in your mind, like first thing in the morning, I'm going to go to the gym. But you can actually use action triggers to do things like practice mindful eating. For example, when you're chewing, I put down my fork. So you're chewing. For a lot of people, the habit is to sort of shove something in your mouth. You've got your fork like this, and you're chewing. And while you're chewing, you're like preparing your next bite, so that when like this one's like already like halfway swallowed, you like already have another bite of food in your mouth. Instead of that, put your fork down and chew your food. You can lose so much weight by chewing your food. I mean, it's amazing. So that would be a great one. After you swallow, take a drink of water. These are action triggers. So you remember, every time I swallow, I take a drink of water. Every time I'm chewing, I put my fork down or my sandwich down. And the same thing, you can build. So you could do that to practice mindful eating. You can also use action triggers to build shopping habits. So after I drop off the kids, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'll stop by the farmer's market Saturday after breakfast. You can also use action triggers to build good cooking habits. Some people do Meatless Monday, and that's exactly the sort of thing. It's like, oh, it's Monday. I'm no vegetarian, but that might help some people just think more about cooking vegetables and be healthier. That one day of the week can make a big difference. I also used to host something called Soup Night, which I would have friends over once a month, and my roommates and I would make 2 big pots of soup, and it's a wonderful dinner item because soup just stays warm, so you don't have to have a dinner time. And it's a great way to get together with people. And so Soup Night just made sure that we ate healthy, delicious soup once a month with our friends, which is great. You can also use action triggers to, I already talked about building eating habits. Oh yeah, like I mentioned earlier, eating green vegetables for lunch and dinner, drinking entire glasses of water before first meal. And then finally, the book, the last recommendation is creating checklists. Sometimes this can be really helpful to just have a checklist to make sure you have 4 main courses to cook every week. And it's hard to let main courses go to waste. So chances are if you go and buy those, you'll cook them. And make sure you have the side dishes and just have a little checklist for that. One person wrote into me and asked about tracking. And I wasn't exactly clear what she meant with the question, but there is some value in tracking your habits, which is what she asked about. And so I would say that there is value in knowing your goals for sure. So knowing your body fat percentage is a really good marker for how you're doing. If you really want to follow this stuff, get your body fat tested. Even a pant size is pretty good. I'm not as ecstatic about the weight on the scale, but it'll suffice if you can't do better. But I do think there's a big value in tracking your food, particularly if you're new to this, if you're not very aware of what you eat. So I've kept food journals for large portions of my life, and now I'm very aware of what I'm eating, and I always try to overestimate my calories because I know most people underestimate it. But most people really underestimate how well they eat, and they assume they eat a lot better than they do. So being very honest in a food journal can help a lot. And you don't even have to consciously be changing anything, but just being aware, that can help you find your bright spots. It can help you find your weaknesses, and it can be very valuable in just giving you an idea of your patterns of eating, and it can help you find places that you can easily make changes or easily expand on something that's going well. So there's one more book. Oh, and then she asked what methods do I use for tracking. I recommend just a small little journal. She said paper gets confusing, and I agree, but a little tiny little journal is nice because these don't get lost. I have trouble using iPhones and stuff. I know some people like it, but I have trouble tracking my food that way. I'm not so good at the typing, but whatever works for you is good. I like the Spiral Notebook. There's 2 more books I want to talk about before we move on to questions. One is this book. I don't know if you guys read it. I try to talk about it a lot. It's called Mindless Eating, Why We Eat More Than We Think by Brian Wansink. This book is so awesome. So if you're the kind of person, you already have a growth mindset, you already know your goals and know your habits, but you just want little tools and tricks to trick yourself into eating better, and I totally believe that you can do this. Gary Taubes, who wrote Good Calories, Bad Calories, doesn't believe that this sort of stuff works, but I totally do. This book is hilarious. They have all these examples of what he calls they're like optical illusions in food. Basically, he does experiments on people where he tricks them into eating hundreds of calories more of nasty food, like stale popcorn and all sorts of gross stuff. So he did this one experiment where he gave 2 groups of people giant things of popcorn. Both were too big to eat. But and it was stale popcorn, so it didn't taste good. I mean, stale popcorn is so disgusting. And they went to the movies. The people who had the bigger ones ate 200% more or something ridiculous, even though nobody finished it. It's just this illusion that when you have a bigger container, you're inclined to eat more. He did a similar experiment where he had a soup bowl and he put a hose into the bottom so it would never be empty. And people would eat up to a quart of soup and not report any difference in fullness than people who just ate a regular bowl of soup. So this book is hilarious. I mean, and there's all these little tricks you can do. Use smaller bowls and plates and spoons. People were eating 50% more calories of ice cream just with bigger spoons and bowls. But it can also go the other way. So there's something called a health halo. So that if you think something's healthy, it's also easy to eat a lot more of it, or eat a lot more of something worse later because you're rewarding yourself for your good behavior. Another thing you can do is get taller versus wider drinking glasses. All these little tricks. Keep things out of sight, out of mind. If there's a bowl of candy, people are a zillion times more likely to go back to it. Make things hard to get. Keep very unhealthy items that you know you're weak for. Just keep them out of the house. I mean, just get rid of them completely. And this idea of marketing or selling food to yourself and your family. So using descriptive language to make food sound good. So that's, I do this on my blog all the time. I explain something as a fresh summer tomato salad, or you use things that evoke feelings of farmers market, fresh and healthy and seasonal, and you make a normally boring sounding dish sound amazing. Or you can, accent the ingredients like, oh, this is pink Himalayan sea salt. It's just salt, right? But I mean, it sounds fancier. I wrote an article about this, and I'm pretty sure it's in the show notes already, about how to get your friends and family to eat healthy food. And it's all about marketing and trickery, but it works. And it works on yourself. If you are invested in the ingredients you bought because you got them from a farmer who had a really cool story, that food's going to taste a little bit better, and you'll be that much more excited about eating that kale or whatever. So that's a great trick. And also just have simple rules like 50% of my plate's going to be vegetables. Make it happen. Stuff like that. And then the last thing I want to talk about before I take questions is those of you or those people where it's more than just habits forming, you really need to break some habits. So food for you is more like an addiction, and it's starting to activate your neural reward circuitry, like the dopamine pathways, just like cigarettes and cocaine and alcohol. And for that, I really strongly recommend the book The End of Overeating by David Kessler. And basically he gives the 4 steps and he basically treats overeating almost like a rehab. So there's 4 steps to break these sort of addiction-like habits with food. The first is awareness. And you have to become aware of action triggers that cause you to overeat. And this is all a very personal thing. So you have to start paying attention. But being aware that you have a problem and being able to see the places where that problem is most rampant is really going to help you. And the next thing you do is you have to develop competing actions. So, if you know this trigger induces you to have this response where you eat too much, make sure you have a plan for what to do instead. So you're like, what's an example? If your neighbor bakes cookies every Saturday and it drives you crazy, that's your time you're going to work out. You wanted to start working out. The best time to do that is when you're going to be tortured in your house because it smells like cookies. You also need to have competing thoughts. So think long and hard about your values, about things that are more important to you than food, like ecology, the environment, or health, or happiness, or local farmer economies, stuff like that. So those are both sort of the rider and the elephant approaches. And then the 4th step is also to have support. So to make sure that you have loving people around you, or a support group, even if it's a chat group online, or a forum online of people just with the same goals, that can be incredibly valuable. So that is it. That was a lot of stuff, and this is a very complicated topic, so I am happy to take questions at this point. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, I'm going to head over to the question section. I don't have any moderators today, so I'm going to take this one. I saw it in the chat room. What tea do I recommend to lose weight? So there actually is some data that I saw that green tea, I think it was 4 cups a day, can help you lose weight. But I wouldn't bank on that as a weight loss tool. I think generally all tea is great. It has a lot of antioxidant benefits. It has appetite. It has metabolism stimulating caffeine and stuff. And if you drink too much tea, I can get a little stomachache if I drink tea without food, but I recommend the tea that you like, and I think it's much better than soda. Coffee's also good. Coffee can make you a little bit more skittish, so tea is a great alternative. I don't think there's any specific tea that I would recommend for weight loss. Maybe green tea, but yeah, that's my answer. Thanks, Alex. And by the way, if you guys have video questions, I would love to chat with you. I think this is a great topic for discussion. just make sure that you please have headphones in, because if not, there's feedback from the computer and it just sounds horrible. So please just wear headphones. Awesome. See, this is a perfect example of a question that I would love for you to call in, because I don't know what Goline is. Is that the Kashi stuff? So basically, I'm pretty sure this is a cereal. Correct me if I'm wrong. Here, I'll head over to the chat room. Okay, yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's just puffed rice and fake sugar, right? Maybe some like whole grain sprinklings in there. So my first piece of advice would be to read the ingredients. I think I've had this stuff before, and I don't remember thinking it tasted very good. The biggest issue for me was cereals are generally not very healthy. They tend to be mashed up grains and highly processed. They trick you into thinking it's healthy. That's right. Exactly. They totally trick you into thinking it's healthy. Oh, did I lose you guys? Yes, Eric, thank you. Did I lose you guys? Did I freeze? Are you still there? So I'm going to talk about this next question, because even though nobody can see me, I believe this is still recording and will be valuable in the future. So what is an example of a food habit that I had to break, and how did I break it? Well, probably the most substantial one is I used to need to eat sugar at night after dinner, especially if I ate anything with onions or garlic in it. For some reason, that just made me crave sugar and chocolate. And I used to just eat trail mix and anything I could think of. I tried to get chocolate out of the house. So then I would turn to like trail mix with dried fruit, and it was no good. It was really affecting my ability to lose weight. And what I did was I started eating more carbs, ironically. I started eating more intact whole grains during the day and for dinner. And that completely solved my I'm hungry at night problem. And it wasn't a 100% transition. So I first tapered my way off with using fruit, and that was really effective for me, actually. So if you eat something, and I don't recommend something like grapes where you can just keep popping them in your mouth, or strawberries. But I think that orange or an apple or a big piece of fruit with a lot of water and a lot of fiber in it and a good amount of sugar in there is a really good substitute. And that's my advice. And it wasn't that hard, but it was really effective. And these days I never have sugar cravings anymore, which is awesome. So I'm going to talk to the chat room for 1 second because they're confused. All right. Thank you, Aisha. Poor me. I'll fire Comcast, guys, I swear. All right. Do you recommend skim or soy milk in coffee? My favorite thing in coffee, personally, is actually half and half. I think it's good to have a little bit of fat in there. I don't see the value in skim milk at all, really. Soy milk is a different story. Soy milk has been associated with some negative effects, and it also can be very sugary. So regular plain soy milk is actually sweetened soy milk. You really need unsweetened soy milk if you're not gonna. Otherwise, it's like you're adding sugar to your coffee as well. So this can be actually really confusing for people. But I generally recommend I either getting used to black coffee or just going with a half and half. It's pretty good. Or if you want skim milk, that's fine. Some people are sensitive to dairy. I'm one of those people. I don't recommend a lot of dairy. And some people find that even milk in your coffee can prevent weight loss. Tim Ferriss reported that in the 4-Hour Body. But, if you need to have something, just a regular milk or half and half, I think, is your best option. I think fat is good. Okay. Yes, you guys are very cool. Okay. Looks like it's time to wrap up, I guess. Hopefully, Comcast swears to God that they're coming to my house tomorrow to make my life better. And hopefully that's the problem and not Vocal. I think it's Comcast. Okay, thank you everyone for tuning in. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Hopefully this will be recorded beautifully and will be up next week. And the next live show is scheduled for Tuesday, March 29th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the topic again will be healthy vegetarian and vegan diets, which will be fun for all. Thank you guys so much. And if you want to sign up to participate in future episodes, just go to tinyletter.com/summertomato. Over and out.